Hello and welcome from St. George's Square here in Pimlico on this glorious sunny day. And today Sarah, Alexander and myself will be sharing with you what it is that makes today's leaders amazing, influential leaders. So, Sarah, could you tell us more about your book regarding spiritual leaders?
Absolutely. Well, I'm the author of a book that's called Spiritual Intelligence in Leadership, From Manager to Leader in Your Own Life. And essentially the book is about self-leadership. It's about how to really connect to your true self and lead from that place of strength and power and wisdom. Because the essence of the book is that I believe within each and every one of us is this purity, this perfection, this brilliance, this magnificence that we are really here to make manifest in the world through the roles that we fulfill, through our businesses, through every aspect of our lives in actual fact. And for me, spiritual intelligence and leadership is allowing a higher wisdom to guide every aspect of your life. And that ability to let go of control and have the confidence to be guided from within and reveal that purity, that magnificence that actually is who you are. And I know you talk a lot about the importance of spiritual wisdom and connection in a path to wisdom. Perhaps you could tell us a little bit more about that, Tony?
Absolutely, Sarah. Now, I wrote A Path to Wisdom after being made redundant in the corporate world. And I took some time to really reflect what is it that makes us tick. What is it that brings adversity into our life? Why is it some people have it so easy and other people have to struggle through their daily life to be able to earn an income, become leaders, entrepreneurs, or simply be able to pay their bills on a daily basis? Now, having really spent a lot of time studying but also experiencing life from both sides of the equation, I actually came to this understanding, deep understanding within the self, how important it is to be able to understand the programming that runs this physical body. And then while we have the body, I went on a search, on a global search, to work with some amazing spiritual leaders and healers to understand how the spirit then connects to us. Because we are not really taught things about the spirit, and we have been almost like kept in the dark about it.
Yes.
And I really wanted, from that point of curiosity, I wanted to bridge the gap between spirituality, between science, and between modern psychology. Now, A Path to Wisdom came as a result of fusion of those three, taking the Western methodologies of how our mind works and how our body works and emotional intelligence combined together with Eastern methodologies of natural healing of the body, mind and spirit. Now, A Path to Wisdom is really about for each person to be able to find that path within themselves and to become the people they always wanted to be or they dream about. There are so many people out there, they dream about having a most perfect life, but something within them stops them from creating that. So the Path to Wisdom was written to help people choose that path they ideally would not have the courage to walk on. Now, how that relates to leaders, you mentioned the things about the leadership. For me, every leader needs to have a balance. And every leader needs to have that inner stillness in themselves. And every leader needs to have time to be in peace with themselves, to become effective leaders. Now, we both know the amount of, I would say, noise it's out there in the corporate world. The amount of pressures, the amount of decisions that are being made, the amount of people needs to be led, and the amount of egos you need to actually manage. Now, as a leader out there, there are so many challenges. But what we, Sarah and I, are here to discuss is about how we can help you to really access that innate intelligence and that innate wisdom for you to be extremely effective in your job as a leader. Now, Sarah, what are the main problems that you have come across in the clients that you service, and how you see the world and the leaders in today's global economy?
Well, I think for me, what I notice, and I would say this from my experience of working with leaders of really large multinationals to people all the way down who are just entrepreneurial startups, is there is not enough attention paid to our inner dialogue, our inner thinking, and our connection to our true selves. And, we can operate and go throughout our entire days led entirely by our ego-based thinking, that part of us that thinks it knows what to do, that feels all the pressure that's in the workplace, that is often very fear-based in its approach, that is very negative and critical and judgmental of others, the part that wants to compete, the part that wants to believe it's special, it's the best, it's got something special about it and is therefore superior to others. And I think we really are getting to a very critical point, aren't we, in business today, where there has to become a shift. Because all of this fear-based thinking is just generating so much stress within an organisation, and it's making organisations very toxic places to work in. And we have to start now creating a very significant change to make organisations more pleasant places to work in, because business can have such a powerful, positive effect on the world. And so particularly when we work with leaders, and I know you work with a lot of leaders as well, it starts with changing their thinking and their outlook to see not always the worst in people, not always the problems and the issues that people are generating, their personality habits that perhaps are not conducive in the workplace, to really see beyond that and start to see their innate goodness, their talents, their skills, all the perfection that they actually do bring to the workplace. And as we start to peel back the layers of people's personalities and be able to focus on that goodness that is within them, it's amazing how that focus starts to bring it out, not only in them, but also with us as well. And, we've talked before, Tony, haven't we? I know you could say more about this, about the challenges that actually negativity poses in the workplace.
Absolutely. I mean, negativity, the root cause of negativity in the workplace is the fact that there's so much distrust across every single layer of the organization. Now, I worked for 15 years in the corporate world, and I saw how distrustful energy can destroy organizations, but also how single distrust can impact the individual, both on their health, but also how they connect and how they relate and how they do their jobs, and how that translates into a team, how that translates into the office, how that translates that across the customers and the people that they service. Now, distrust comes very simply from lack of trust. And trust, the opposite energy of trust, it's fear. So going back what you said, is about all those fear-driven decisions and all those control that comes as a result of when we fear something. Because when we fear something, our body naturally, absolutely naturally wants to protect it. Now, as a leader and as people working in organizations with responsibilities to actually run the organizations, of course they will tap into that fear, and of course they would want to protect something. But going back what Sarah mentioned earlier on, it will create that toxic environment. And in toxicity, there's no way we can have excellence. And by excellence, I mean excellence in every single employee, who are engaged, who are on time, who are not ill, who are happy, who basically communicate extremely well, who can trust one another, and you can delegate your work without going back and having to check on those employees. Now, all of those issues are happening daily in the corporations. And the clients that I work with, some of the very senior executives of some of the top FTSE 100 companies, they face all of those challenges in themselves. So it's not really specific at the lower part of the organizations, at the day-to-day person who actually does all the hard work. It actually goes from the bottom to the top. All of those issues are almost like connected.
Magnified almost.
Magnified, absolutely magnified. So in that magnification of those processes and those fears and those controls and those insecurities in ourselves, actually the entire organizations will be polluted. Now, Sarah, would you like to live in a polluted environment?
Absolutely not, and certainly I would not want to work in one either. And I think a lot of what we're talking about here is change that has got to start at the top, because I don't think leaders always recognise just how influential not only their behaviours are within an organisation, but also their words, their attitudes, and of course the thinking that is the very origins of their words, their attitudes and their behaviours. And this is why in the coaching program that I run, which is called Magnificence, the 12 Steps to High Performance and Low Stress, the focus is very much at the level of thought, because that's the origin, that's the cause of either all the very positive impacts that we can make in the world, or likewise the very negative impact that we can make, both just with those around us, but in the organisation at large. And for me, that releasing the habit of negative thinking, of projecting negative assumptions onto others, often when we don't know all the facts, is a really significant thing that we need to let go of. It is such a kind of forerunner, if you like, to the spread of toxicity, just the negative projections we place on others. And not only does it have a bad impact on them, but of course it comes straight back and has a really negative impact on us. So for me, real kind of vigilance of how we are thinking, and therefore the words we're speaking and the actions we're actually fulfilling, it's an awareness, it's a mindful awareness of our thought, and it takes work, it takes time. And Tony, perhaps you could say a little bit about meditation and how that sort of links into our ability to gain more understanding of ourselves.
Absolutely. Now, I practice meditation for the last 15 years. And having worked with some amazing teachers out there and spiritual teachers, I started to really gain access to an intelligence which I never thought existed in me. Now, many people watching this video would actually connect to that, because when you've been told all your life you are not good enough, and then when you are in a work environment where you are so restricted in what you can do, that also is, in a way, it's a communication back at you that you're not good enough to be great, you start really lose confidence in your abilities to perform, in your abilities to be a leader, in your abilities to make a difference in our world. Now, I went ahead and sought the best teachers globally. And although I learned a lot about the logical mind, it was essential for me to create that stillness within myself. And why I'm saying meditation is so important for that. Now, you can imagine if this park was full of like ravers and music and loud and everything else, you know that you will not be able to pick up any words between me and Sarah. Now, in a similar way, we have, on average, on a daily basis, we have about 70,000 thoughts going through our head. That is having 70,000 people right now screaming, and you will have no idea what we are saying. In a similar way, when we have those thoughts, and if we do not take time during the day to actually sit down, even if it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, even if it's at work in your office, to reflect back and calm your mind, you will not be able to operate most effectively and make decisions, and also work with people from a loving space, because meditation helps you create that space within the self, so therefore you can reflect it back at others when you speak to somebody, when you actually connect with somebody, and when you actually delegate something to somebody who you need to entrust to do a job at a specific time that is required for a leader to then go and pass that information to their stakeholders. So meditation, it's key to calming leaders' mind. Now, from your perspective, Sarah, it's sort of when you look at the current environment, and I find it fascinating, we are in the middle of elections. Now, one thing what strikes me, it's the way that leaders, today's leaders, global leaders, in our political environment right now, the main part is the way they communicate to one another. And for me personally, it's actually quite distressing in the aggression that comes out of every single leader. What do you think about that?
I mean, it worries me too. I think it is a very sad reflection on these people that could be great role models for leadership, that they are looking for opportunities to put someone down, to backstab, to make people feel small. And it is such a shame when, you know, they could actually be coming together to really genuinely serve the greater good of this country. And it really harks back to what I was saying earlier on, that negative projections, negative thoughts, negative judgments on others, yes, it has an impact on those other people, but it also has such an impact on ourselves. And I think if we could just see the internal damage we are doing to ourselves by judging other people, and that beautiful light of our magnificence that is within us, that's here for us to shine forth in our roles as leaders, you know, we are quite literally hiding that over. We're putting a veil, we're darkening that light through our judgments, through our thoughts of attack really on others, as we see in the political scene. And I think, you know, we may work really hard at our meditation, we may really focus on that light that's within us, but if at the same time, when push comes to shove, we're out there really kind of attacking people, then that light is still just being covered over, and our negative beliefs that we hold about ourselves. I mean, Tony, you spoke earlier on about the belief of I'm not good enough that so many people unfortunately hold. And again, it's another veil over that light of our magnificent self. And so letting go of that thinking, letting go of our thoughts of judgment and attack on others, really is the way to start to reveal that light. And of course, it adds to the benefit of our meditation practice. And actually, something I just wanted to say about meditation is that many people in the corporate world think it's a bit kind of woo-woo to be meditating, and we should really be kind of wearing kaftans and sitting somewhere other than in a square in London. And you know, for me, meditating is just focusing the mind, focusing it to that place that is stillness, that is peace within me, and letting go of the thoughts that are whirring around in my mind quite a lot of the time. And so there is nothing woo-woo about it. And its great value is it not only shifts our energy, but it accesses us to this vast wisdom that really can be so beneficial in your role as a leader. I mean, perhaps you could say, you know, how does our inner wisdom really impact positively our role as leaders today?
Well, there are one person I would love to mention today about I admire so much, and it's her birthday. I'm not sure if you're aware.
The Queen.
The Queen.
The Queen's birthday.
So, yes. Happy birthday to the Queen. Yes. Shall we sing her a song, a message, a birthday message?
I think probably just saying happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Yeah.
And I absolutely admire the Queen.
Yes. Yeah.
And an 89-year-old lady. And it's a woman leader. And she's a figure for the world. Now, I'm not sure about you, but I've been in this country for 25 years. I have never heard the Queen to speak in a way that our political leaders speak. And that's for me the magic of what women bring into leadership. And I work with a lot of women leaders who basically are so much easier to work with because their level of emotional intelligence is extremely high. And they are thirsty for this kind of knowledge. Now, they are thirsty because they want to improve themselves, they want to be better at themselves, and they actually want to make a global change. And looking at the Queen as a role model, for me, every woman, if every woman were able to really have those leadership skills like the Queen has, our world will be such a better place. Now, reflecting back at meditation and looking at how meditation can really help us access that inner wisdom, I created TJS Evolutionary Meditation Solutions specifically for that. For people to be able, on their way to work, to spend half an hour to connect to their body, mind and heart. Now there are many different meditations that people can check them up on iTunes or at pathtowisdom.com, but they really designed, first of all, one of them it's called from head full of noise to blissful mind.
Yeah,
I mean, who does not want to have a blissful mind? Now, to access that intelligence within ourselves, it is key and essential to do daily meditation practice.
Yeah.
It's just like when you think about it, let's take an example of a mobile phone. Mobile phone it's a very powerful tool. It has the information and the intelligence of the entire world, but yet there's nothing connected to it. There's no noise around it, and there's a lot of information that we can open. Now, in a similar way, inside of each one of us, we receive billions of information every day through our senses. Now, to be quiet and still, it enables us from within ourselves to be able to connect. Just the way a mobile phone connects to a GPRS network where the data flows, in a similar way, inside of ourselves, we need to connect. Now, what do you think about when people go through that, especially leaders, when they are disconnected from within themselves? What kind of leadership we would be seeing?
Well, I mean, this is really a lot of what I cover in my book, Spiritual Intelligence and Leadership. The subtitle is From Manager to Leader in Your Own Life. And really, I'm using the analogy there of the manager is that person who runs their life very much at the level of their ego. The manager is their ego that's telling them what to do, that's bossing them around, that's criticizing them when they've done wrong, that is putting them down internally. And that's a lot of what the manager in our head does. And yet correspondingly, we are all actually on this journey to be connected to the leader within, which is that highest and best part within us that just knows how to handle situations, that has got that loving wisdom, that intelligence, that spiritual intelligence really tuned up to know how to handle people, how to handle situations, how to move a business forward. And, that is an intelligence that if we can allow to absolutely lead our lives, it really can have a very profound effect, not just on us, but actually on everyone within the organization. And I think we see that beginning to happen in many organizations now. And what I love is that it ripples beyond the organization itself. It ripples out, it affects the suppliers. They find that, they're really valued as suppliers. It affects the competitors. There's not a theory of competitor one against the others, a joining with competitors. It affects the community around the organization. And often that organization can go out and have a really profound effect on the world at large. And for me, that is the key shift in our thinking from very much our ego-based self that is focused exclusively on us and is largely in fear, to that leader within us, that path of self-leadership where we're coming from that place of love and kindness and compassion and understanding of others, still powerful, still assertive, still able to make good decisions, but decisions for the greater good rather than our individual good, our individual needs. And for me, that's such a key shift. And I'm sure you've seen that, Tony, haven't you, in some of the work you've done? You work some really big organizations. Have you got some leaders that really are operating in this way?
Yes, I mean, some of the leaders that I work are from the organization of FTSE 100 companies, including Microsoft, including Ernst & Young, including Deutsche Bank, and all our private clients that I work with. Now, when they started working with me, those people had a lot of stress. And some of them had addictions, and some of them actually they were extremely overwhelmed, and it impacted their family lives, their relationships, it impacted the way they lead their lives. So it was almost like the last resort that they found somebody like me that integrates the body, mind, heart, spirit connection, and how unlocking that can tremendously benefit their entire life as an entity rather than sort of just as a leader in the organization. Because leadership starts within ourselves, meaning being the leaders of our life and being the masters of our thoughts and masters of who we are, and actually taking that intelligence, which is the most powerful thing we've ever given, a God-given intelligence, that we can use it to create most amazing things. And we have created amazing things. So really, when I look at the kind of people that I work, it's really, as I help them out, they start almost bringing that into the organization and bringing mindfulness programs that basically organization can instantly see the benefits of when they have teams which communicate easily with one another. They do not have teams that basically team members where they sit across one another and they have to send emails to one another, and they keep asking one another why they haven't done the job, yet the person is just in front of them. Now we've overcomplicated our lives, and also organizations have overcomplicated themselves with so many processes that a mindful person or a conscious person and a conscious leader would naturally not need to have those. So it costs the organizations more money to actually deal with the effects of lower consciousness and lower mindfulness in the work environment and lack of spiritual leadership than actually employing and having people like Sarah and myself coming into the organizations and making a difference and bringing a whole new perspective. Because in my experience, Sarah, most of those leaders are afraid to share with the internal coaches of what's really happening in their personal lives, because they would fear they will lose their jobs, they will fear, their image in the organization, and all of those fears that are happening that most leaders will not share with the internal coaches. So I believe combination of the internal coaches and external coaches can help organizations and leaders to go to that next level, to the shift you were mentioning earlier on, which is essential for the new Y generation of people, growing up with iPads, to have an environment which is extremely nurturing. Now, before we wrap it up today, I would love to ask you, and I will share with you also, what 4 things you have for our listeners out there to make the best leader.
Well, for me, the best leader is someone who really can access that place of their own magnificence, that stillness, that calm center that's within them. And so the first thing I would say is to be aware that within you is this calm, centered place that enables you to think clearly, to operate effectively, but also to operate with low stress. And bringing awareness to it, acknowledging it, is the first thing to do. What we focus on expands. So let's expand that calm, centered energy so it can then ripple out to others. My second tip is to allow yourself time every single day, not just perhaps in the morning or just before you go to bed at night, but just at regular intervals throughout the day, just to calm your mind, just to draw back from the rush of the work environment and just have a period of stillness. It might just be 1 minute where you just turn things off, just listen to your breath, just listen to your body, and just really access that stillness within. Because 1 minute, 5 times a day, actually gives your mind and your body a little bit of a chance just to rest and relax and come back to that centered place. So my third tip is really to be willing to listen to that wisdom that is within you. It can guide you on absolutely every business decision, how to take the business forward, what new markets to go into, who to have working for you and who not to have working for you, who's aligned with your values and who isn't. And facts and figures are really important as well. Analysis is important too, but in the end your intuition can allow you to really interpret facts and figures and analysis really effectively. So be willing to listen to it and allow that vaster intelligence to guide you. And my fourth tip is to have the courage to follow it, because often our intuition guides us to places, firstly, that we'd never thought of, but I think secondly, it can often be a little bit scary, because it sees us in our enormity, in our vastness, in our greatness, and it often sees a far bigger picture for us than perhaps we do for ourselves personally. Our intuition doesn't see us as not good enough, or not being wanted, or not being able to perform effectively. It actually sees us in the truth of who we really are, that magnificent self that we are. So it will guide us to those situations and will guide the business to those opportunities that line up with that magnificence. So those are more my 4 top tips for today. What about you, Tony? What are your top tips?
My 4 top tips for today for our listeners in here, for the leaders, for the entrepreneurs, and people who are actually thinking to become leaders. Number 1, when you are being challenged in any situation or with any person, usually what we tend to do, we point a finger. Now, my tip number 1 is basically when somebody points a finger at you about specific situation, instead of actually focusing at the person or the situation or blaming God, I would look at the 3 fingers which are pointing back at me.
Brilliant, yeah.
So pointing back at me, what is it that I'm really learning in this situation? What is it really it's being communicated to me? And what is it about me that I'm actually participating in creating the signal for this situation to happen? Now, in that level of awareness, you can actually create tremendous output when you actually look within yourself to see why this challenge has appeared. With that, you can actually transcend that very quickly and literally move on into a very loving space. The tip number 2 I would have, it's about really looking life from a point of balance. What I mean by that, it's in every man there is a woman, and if you are a man leader right now, I would encourage you 100% to work and understand the woman in you. And if you are a woman leader right now, I would encourage you 100% to understand the man in you and actually bring those 2 dynamics in balance, meaning that masculine and feminine energies to be in balance. So when you are in a work environment, when you operate from those masculine and feminine dynamics in balance, you will create most perfect flow when it comes to communicating, when it comes to connecting, when it comes to sharing, and when it comes to actually being influential leader. Now, number 3 tip I would love to give you and share with you, it's actually finding that peace that you also spoke about, and the importance of dealing with all of the noise inside of ourselves and actually really truly understanding what is it within the self that creates that turmoil that we are unhappy about or we are not in inner peace. Now, without that inner peace, there's no way we can actually generate peace outwardly. And there's no way we can create that nurturing environment when people come and communicate with you as a leader. You actually are from that very grounded, peaceful energy. And tip number 4, as a leader, what I would suggest to you, it's really going back to ground yourself on a daily basis. Now, there's so much things you have to absorb on daily. If you don't ground that energy, you will just throw it out. So what I mean by that also, it's really take time daily to do those meditation practices, but also being able, if you have any negative energies, you actually really can ground those energy back into the ground. Just in a similar way, for somebody like me who is a scientist, when you build a house, you have a wire that we ground it, and there is a reason behind that. Because when the thunder strikes, it can burn and destroy a house. In a similar way, when that thunder strikes at you, like an outside stimulus, you can burn everybody around you. So make sure you ground yourself as a leader. Now, we would like to thank you for listening to us from this beautiful place here in St. George's Square, and this gorgeous smile that Sarah keeps giving it to me, and I cannot resist as a leader. And we look forward to seeing you next time. And remember, I'm going to leave you with one last thing, and Sarah can share her favorite quote, and mine is my name, which is Tony Yeton Selimi, translated in 3 languages, meaning living your life in peace is priceless. What's yours?
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, my favourite quote, and actually something that I use as a mantra on those days when life seems to be getting on top of me, and we all have those days,
Absolutely.
don't we? Is I just remind myself there is a place within me that is perfect peace. And I don't forget that. There is that place of perfect peace within me. My mind might be in turmoil, the environment around me might be very stressful, but that peaceful place within me remains, undisturbed by all of that. And actually, sometimes just remembering that can really help. So I'm Sarah Alexander, and I'm saying there is a place within you that is perfect peace.
And I'm Tony Selimi, and we love you and thank you and leave you with that inner peace and with a hug.
Yes. Great. Thank
Beautiful.
you.